Mr. Chairman, members of the board and public, tonight we have a public hearing on the proposed 2019 tax rates for Warren County. The board and staff have been working on the proposed budget since November of 2018. The board held 6 meetings and work sessions to work specifically on the budget. Included in those meetings and work sessions, you heard individually from each department head and constitutional officer as they presented their budget request. The proposed budget and tax rates have been advertised in the Northern Virginia Daily, the Warren Sentinel, and made available for public inspection on the county's website and the county administrator's office. The board, as you know, held a public hearing on the proposed budget on April 9th. Because this is a reassessment year and the assessment proposed tax is an increase, we are required by law to have a separate hearing from the budget meeting. The proposed increase of the total budget is from $107,826,301 to $112,499,706, an increase of $4,673,405 or 4.33%. The local revenue picture, we're showing an increase of $69,047,578 to $72,455,163, an increase of $3,407,585 or about 4.94%. Significant portion of that increase, almost $2.8 million, is due to the proposed real estate tax increase we're going to talk about tonight, and also a natural estimated increase in personal property tax collections. We've also seen an increase of state revenue from $5,530,634 to $5,655,399, or an increase of just under $125,000, or about 2.26%. Included in our budget is a proposed salary increase for county staff of 3%, a COLA for all positions across the board. When you look at what our neighbors are doing, Clark's proposed a 3.2%, Fauquier 2%, Frederick 4%, Page 3%, Rappahannock 3%, Shenandoah 3%, and Warren 3%. The 3% is, I would say, trying to keep up. A big reason that the localities are using 3% is because that's what the comp board and the state have funded for comp board eligible positions this year. A portion of the county's employees, particularly like in the sheriff's office, the commissioner of the revenue, the treasurer, the court system, are comp board employees. So we typically will try to match what the state amount is, and we don't treat a comp board employee from another county employee. Proposed salary increases, we also have included $300,000 for phase 1 of a multi-year implementation plan based on recommendations from the compensation and classification study completed this past year from PayPoint HR. The county and school board engaged PayPoint to take a look at the salaries and staffing of our schools and county offices to look at how competitive we were in the local market. The total implementation cost for all 3 phases of the county portion of the plan is just under $1.1 million. We have included $300,000 to try to address some of the most egregious positions that are substantially below market. We have not identified the individual specifics, but I certainly can say positions like firefighters and social service workers, those were some of the ones, along with some of our folks at the bottom end of the scale that works at the compactor sites that were really in need of adjustment. Some of the items cut from the proposed budget, a total of $2,117,484 was cut or funded from fund balance from the proposed budget during final deliberations. Some items were cut back, include delay of 6 months of the public schools' next step for their teachers that really started that process last year. We're using $1.2 million of fund balance for the local school system again next year. We delayed start of the Deputy Finance Director position. That's a position we had before, and we've held open for basically vacancy savings. We reduced our reserve for contingencies from $200,000 to $83,846, and we're proposing to use $550,000 in fund balance for capital or one-time purchases. There's a couple agencies, including the Warren County Humane Society, would have a 2% increase or $6,272. And Samuel's Public Library ends up being just under a 1.3% increase, an increase of $12,624. Those are both contractual increases, agreements that we have with those two organizations. The budget includes $1,807,053 in additional operating funding for Warren County Public Schools. And you also need to add in $246,492 in funds that are already over their budget this year, but since we would be assuming the mowing responsibility for all school facilities, and we've added that amount over to the Parks and Rec Department, we have not cut it out of the school board budget. And that would give them $2,053,545 in funding to utilize for the upcoming budget. Now, some of the items that they've included in their proposed budget is a 3% increase for all full-time contracted employees at a cost of $1,150,035. And that 3% matches the county staff increase. To complete the remainder of the step increase initiated in the current fiscal year, and of course we're proposing that start mid-year, it's a cost of $255,324. Year one of the 3-year phase into the comp study, just like the county's 300, their 3-year study, all 3 phases cost about $3 million. Year one was $1,089,000. I believe they're looking at increasing the pay for teachers in the bracket between years 10 through 25. They're also proposing to add 4 of the 63 positions that were identified in the compensation study that were needed at a cost of $267,276. And also they're increasing their utility budget to address increases in the electric purchase price of $225,000. Mr. Drescher had noted previously, the school system is in its 7th consecutive year of needing to hire 60 more instructional staff. For the 18-19 year, 72 instructional staff were hired. Of course, the starting salary in Warren County is $43,247. As a reference, Loudoun County, this is per the Winchester Star, is looking to hire 900 new teachers for the upcoming 19-20 school year at a starting salary of $50,171. It just gives you an idea of a little bit of what we're up against. And Frederick, unfortunately, and others are not too far behind it. The proposed budget includes the following tax increase. We're proposing an increase of 6 cents in the real estate mobile home tax rates from the equalized rate of 59.5 to 65.5 per 100 of assessed value. So our current rate, our tax rate in 2018 was 66 cents per 100. And has to be rolled it back to 59.5 based on the average assessment increase of 11.22%. And the proposed or advertised rate by the board is 65.5. At that rate, we would be either, it depends on how you look at it, the 3rd lowest or the 5th highest tax rate of our neighbors, with Fauquier at 99.4, Page and Rappahannock at 73 cents, Clark at 71, Warren at 65.5, Shenandoah at 64, and Frederick at 61. I would note Frederick went through, they do a 2-year reassessment cycle. They had an increase of 5.78%. Their equalized rate was 57.7, and they left it at 61 cents. So at the proposed rate of 65.5 of the equalized rate, each penny over 59.5 provides $463,347 in additional revenue. Each penny cut from 65.5 requires a further reduction of $93,999 in estimated Public Service Corporation revenue. Of that amount, $77,040 is from the Dominion Power Plant project. Basically, those assessments are set by State Corporation Commission, and what they pay is based off our tax rate. So, based on the existing 66, when you start taking that number down, that's the revenue we would anticipate losing, so we'd have to reduce our revenue projection for next year. So to leave the rate at the equalized rate would require a budget reduction of $557,346 per penny, or a total of $3,344,076. I know you can't all see that sheet, but basically I provided some options for the board to consider if we do not approve the 65.5. Each column is a penny reduction moving from left to right. The different categories include cuts potentially to the schools, cutting out half or all of the county's 3% raise, the loss of state revenue that we would accompany that, cutting out all or a portion of the $300,000 we have set aside for our county comprehensive compensation plan funding to address employee salaries, looking at cutting outside agencies, either 5 or 10%, cutting $45,000 or basically a year out of the lease program for the sheriff's vehicles in the sheriff's department. Use of fund balance up to $290,000, cutting the projects at the bottom, including the senior center, $25,000, the soccer complex, $25,000, the new convenience site at Shenandoah Farms, between $50,000 and $100,000, $25,000 for the Fork Park site. We've been putting funds aside for cutting some revenue sharing funding up to $100,000, and cutting out the lights at the Thompson-Kisseride site up on Friesland Road. In total, those in the out years were a total of approximately $290,000. Also, cutting county departments by either in red 1.2%, orange 1.5%, and 2%. And it may not sound like a lot, but there's a lot of departments that even a 1.5% cut would be a pretty hefty cut, because a lot of their budget is based on employees, unless you're cutting bodies, which we certainly try not to. It's pretty tough, but this is a range of cuts. We would go back to the departments and constitutional officers. They know where they can hopefully make those cuts, and they would have to provide those to us before we finalize our appropriations for the board to consider. Tonight, we're also having a hearing on our sanitary district rates that are addressed by the reassessment also, because we have some of our sanitary district lots that are based on assessed values. Blue Mountain would stay at $65 per lot and 24 cents per 100 of assessed value. Cedarville Heights would go from $75 per lot to 100 per lot. High Knob would go from $393 for unimproved and $635 for improved to $403 per unimproved and $651 for improved lot. Lakefront Royal would go from $300 per lot to $300 per lot plus 5 cents per 100 of assessed value. Linden Heights would remain at $350 per lot. The new Osprey Lane would go from would be $100 per unimproved and $1,000 per improved lot. Riverside would be $60 per lot and 12 cents per 100, which would be down from the 17 cents. Again, that's based on reassessment. Shangri-La would stay at $385 per lot. Skyland Estates would go down because of reassessment from 35 cents per 100 to 32.5 cents per 100 assessed value. Shenandoah Farms would go be an increase from $260 per unimproved and $295 per improved up to $265 per unimproved and $305 per improved lot. Shenandoah Shores would remain at $120 per lot and 20 cents per 100 of assessed value. South River would remain at $300 per lot and 5 cents per 100 of assessed value. And Wildcat Drive would remain at $150 per unimproved lot and $400 per improved lot. There were a few comments, good comments at the April 9th meeting, but I wanted to at least try to provide some response. In some cases, we reached out to the Constitutional Officers Department. Question was raised, why do sheriff's deputies need cell phones and police cars, especially because they've got radios? Policy at Sheriff's Office: employees who wish to use their personal devices in the transaction of public business must request to be approved to do so. The stipends in the sheriff's office are for 4 employees who are on call, 3 being investigators and 1 being the E911 supervisor. Additionally, there are 12 cell phones in the budget, 5 from the investigations division, 1 from communications, and 6 from command staff. So there's a total of 16 cell phones or stipends for 62 sworn officers. Let's comment that we have 78 deputies and the state allots 41. There are currently 58 full-time law enforcement certified deputies, 44 uniformed patrol deputies, that's animal control, patrol, school resource officers, and supervisors. There are 8 non-uniformed patrol deputies in investigations and 5 patrol deputies in court services. Pursuant to section 15.2, 1609.1 of the Code of Virginia, the governing body of any county or city may employ a greater number of law enforcement deputies than fixed by the comp board. The chart down there at the bottom, full-time public safety personnel comparison. So Page County, and they're based on their population, they have 280 residents per law enforcement person. Rappahannock has 401, Fauquier 451, Frederick 557, Warren 639, Shenandoah 654, and Clark 847. We're third from the bottom there. So I look at those numbers, I don't see a large spread of deputies. I would say that if you look at our audit, I believe there was 10 years ago 53 listed in the audit book, and now last year was 54. So there's been an increase maybe of 1 position this is before this last year over that 10-year period. Certainly the population has increased more than that. The court services line item should be close to 0 with the opening of the RSW Regional Jail and all the costs under the court security line item. There's one line item that says court services, but it encompasses court security. So those are the folks that operate the metal detector when you come to the building and the bailiffs in the courtrooms. It also includes court holding. Those are the officers that are watching the inmates that have been delivered from the RSW Regional Jail while they're awaiting their time to go into court, and civil process, who delivers obviously the paperwork for the court system. They were not part of the jail or courts prior to that. They were part of the regular office. There's a comment about the current Rivermont Fire Station getting the job done, and I just would say, put some pictures there of the bracing, but the current Rivermont Fire Station, constructed in the 1930s as a community center and donated to the fire department in 1954. Since July 14 of 2015, the second floor has been uninhabitable. There are support beams currently bracing the collapsed rear wall of the station, ongoing groundwater moisture, and they've had mold issues in the building that have prohibited overnight staffing, which increases response time in the event of an emergency. There was concern that the new building was going to be replaced with a gold-plated monstrosity, the Taj Mahal of fire stations, as the monument to fire and rescue management, built on land the county does not own, and financing will involve the workforce housing project with the EDA. I would note the property, the new site, has been owned by the county since 1999. We will have to work out with the FAA. We'll have to do a reimbursement for them, but the county does own it. The volunteer staff will be responsible for furbishing the new banquet hall space and the kitchen, and financing for the project is unrelated to the workforce housing that's already in place. It's 25-year bank rate loan with Capital One at an interest rate of 3.58%. It is a pre-engineered metal building. Yes, it will be dressed up a little bit on the outside, but you look at some of the other cost of facilities, it's in line, and we all wish it was cheaper, but the project is. I was concerned about the Humane Society for paying $313,000 to take in 560 animals at $600 per animal. So far in 18-19, Warren County has appropriated $310,000 to the Humane Society, which has taken in 1,392 animals. That's 732 cats and 655 dogs, or cost about $222.87 per animal. The annual cost per citizen of these animals is about $7.83, and only 2 of our surrounding localities have brought in more animals. That's an unfortunate thing to the Humane Society, but Fauquier and Frederick and only 2 of the localities have a lower per animal cost. We had previously looked at the county creating its own dog pound and building a facility, if you remember, for those of you on the board, and we made the decision to continue to support the local Humane Society and let them handle the animals, and that's why we've got the contract in place to do that. That's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Can you come up to the podium, name, address? Oh, I'm sorry, let the board first, yeah.
Right.
So I had a question.
I have no
regarding
questions
the-
right
We
now.
have to go through the board first, and then we'll
Oh,
come to
okay.
you.
No, I think that's more appropriate for the public to talk during the public hearing. I have no questions at this time.
Any questions,
I have no questions.
Linda? Go ahead, Tom.
Mr. Stanley, there was I read in the paper about a $1.9 million outlay from the RSW jail. You've included that in this year's budget?
I have not. That would occur in the current year's budget. Obviously, the board would have to appropriate, if I think it's 1.7, if we received all our portion of that, the board would have to appropriate that. Obviously, we've got some one-time cost. We've already expended between $700,000 and $800,000 towards the EDA situation that was unplanned, unbudgeted for in the current year. So hopefully that will offset some of those costs. And funding could be there. What we've done the past years is put some of that funding aside for the RSW. There'll be years where our inmate numbers will be higher, and there'll be years when it's lower to try to smooth out those costs. But the 1.7 will happen in this current year, not next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Stanley, do we have any idea what the RSW might be the following year?
The good news is that we've been budgeting a steady $4.25 million, but our numbers have been going down. Our percentage cost at the jail has been going down. Of course, the bed rental to outside organization has gone up. That's helped us see less costs. So our hope is that in the next couple of years that we'll see reduced costs to us for operation of the facility as far as our share.
Okay, thank you. Anyone?
So the question that I had,
I think it's more or less, once we open the public hearing,
We have to
then you have
finish
an
up here.
option to answer, ask your questions.
and they'll be
In the public
addressed- They'll be answered during the public hearing? I thought it was just a
Public
comment.
hearing, no, this is just for the board's consideration. So once we open the public hearing, then you may ask questions.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Stanley. In your presentation, and it was noted that we have no control over the assessment of the utility services, Dominion Power, and we lost over $600,000 in the assessment that is from the State Corporation
We
Commission.
lost $600,000 the current year from
The current
last year
year.
because of the reclassification of some of their equipment as
Air pollution.
pollution control and air handling equipment that was technically exempt under the state code from taxation. So the county took over a $600,000 loss in estimated revenue in the current budget. That was one of the things that the board had to deal with last year.
Right. And you presented how much each cent
Each cent, we lose about, $77,000, I believe.
from the Dominion.
And we've already decreased the estimate in this year's budget about $300,000. So it's already down $300,000. For each penny down, you'll lose about $77,000 in revenue.
I just wanted that clarified for the public. Thank you.
Anyone else, Mr. Fox?